everyone, I'm Emma. Like, share, and subscribe now.
Hey, I'm Jackson. Let's continue today's topic.
Imagine you are in a meeting in London. You present your idea. Your British colleague looks up and says, "That is quite interesting." And you feel good. Interesting, that means they like it. Right? Wrong. In British English, "that is quite interesting" can mean your idea is terrible, and I am trying to be polite about it. Welcome to the most confusing language within a language in the world. Today, we decode British English. All of it.
Welcome to Simple English Talks. And I have to tell you, this topic genuinely changed my life. I spent years working with British colleagues and completely misreading conversations. I thought people were being positive when they were being critical. I thought they were being polite when they were actually very concerned. And the worst part? Nobody told me. Because telling someone they misread a situation is, in British culture, also considered quite rude.
Which means you can be confused for years with no one correcting you. And that is exactly why we are making this episode. By the end of today, you will understand why British communication works the way it does. A complete guide to the most common British phrases and their real meanings. How to respond correctly when a British person gives you indirect feedback. How British understatement differs by city. London versus Manchester versus Edinburgh versus Glasgow. And how to use these insights to feel genuinely confident in any conversation with British people. Let us start with the big why.
And before we start, write in the comments, has British understatement ever confused you? A moment where you completely misread what a British person meant? Write your story. We genuinely want to hear them, and we will be reading every single one.
Before we get to the phrases, we need to understand why British communication works the way it does. Because it is not random. There is a deep cultural logic behind it. And once you understand the logic, the individual phrases start to make perfect sense.
I have always wondered this. It almost seems like British people go out of their way to not say what they mean. Why?
3 reasons. Reason 1, preserving dignity. British culture places enormous value on not embarrassing people, especially in public or professional settings. Saying, "your idea is bad" in front of other people would humiliate the person. That is considered far worse than the bad idea itself. So instead, you say, "that is quite interesting," which allows the person to understand the criticism without being publicly shamed. The discomfort is minimized. The dignity is preserved. Everyone moves on.
So the indirectness is actually a form of kindness in British terms?
Absolutely. It is not evasion, it is protection. Reason 2, understatement as a value. In British culture, especially in England, understating things is considered a mark of sophistication and self-control. Overstating things, being dramatic, is seen as slightly embarrassing. If a British person in London tells you they had a rather difficult day, they might have had an absolutely catastrophic day. But dramatizing it feels undignified. The understatement signals, "I am handling this. I am in control. I am not making a fuss." So the more understated someone is, the more serious the situation might actually be? Often, yes. If a British colleague says, "this could be a slight problem," you should probably start worrying immediately. Reason 3, class and education. Historically in Britain, direct communication was associated with being blunt, unsophisticated. Working class in a pejorative sense. The upper and middle classes developed elaborate systems of indirect communication as markers of education and breeding. While class plays a much smaller role today, the linguistic patterns it created are still everywhere. In boardrooms in London, in universities in Edinburgh, in law firms in Bristol. The indirectness went mainstream even as the class associations faded. So It started as a class marker and became a national communication style?
Exactly. And now, whether you are from a working class family in Manchester or a very well-off family in Surrey, you have absorbed these communication patterns because they are everywhere in British culture. Television, literature, schools, the workplace, they are in the air. Now, let us get into the actual phrases. This is the part you came for. I am going to go through the most important British phrases, what they say, what they actually mean, and how you should respond. This is your decoder. Write these down. Or just watch this episode again later, because this information is genuinely useful for anyone living in, working with, or visiting the UK.
Let us go through them, starting with the most famous one.
Phrase 1. That is quite interesting. What they say, that is quite interesting. What they mean, I do not like this idea at all. Or, this is wrong. Or, I am confused by this. The word quite is the killer here. In British English, quite before an adjective often weakens it rather than strengthens it. That is quite good means it is acceptable, but not impressive. That is quite interesting means I do not know what to make of this, and probably not in a good way. Compare this to American English, where quite means very. That is quite interesting in American English would be genuinely positive. Completely opposite meanings. Same phrase.
I cannot believe that. The same two words, quite interesting, mean almost opposite things in British and American English? How is anyone supposed to know?
Welcome to English. The correct response when a British person says that is quite interesting, do not celebrate. Ask a follow-up question. What aspects do you find most interesting? Or, is there something you would change? This gives them an opening to tell you what they actually think, which they desperately want to do but cannot say directly. Phrase 2. With the greatest respect. What they say, with the greatest respect. What they mean, I think you are completely wrong and possibly quite foolish. With the greatest respect is one of the most devastating phrases in British professional English. The more elaborate the politeness opener, the harsher the actual message underneath. If someone in a London meeting says, with the greatest respect, the next thing they say will be a serious challenge to your position. Brace yourself.
So the politeness of the opener is actually proportional to the severity of the disagreement?
In British English, yes. The elaborate the courtesy, the bigger the butt. Phrase 3. That is very brave. What they say, that is very brave. What they mean, that was a terrible idea, and I am amazed you went through with it. Or, I would never have done that, and I am slightly horrified. Brave in British understatement means risky in a way that has probably not paid off. If your boss in Birmingham says, well, that was very brave of you, after you did something unconventional, start preparing for a difficult conversation.
What about, I am sure it will be fine? I hear that a lot from British people, and I always assumed it was reassuring.
Phrase 4. I am sure it will be fine. What they mean, I am not at all sure it will be fine, and I am quite worried. Is already going wrong. This phrase is British reassurance that is actually a warning. When a British colleague says, I am sure it will be fine, while looking slightly concerned, they are telling you to pay attention. The fine is not a prediction. It is a hope. Sometimes a desperate one.
Write in the comments right now. Have you ever been on the receiving end of I am sure it will be fine, and it was not fine? Tell us what happened. We want to know.
Phrase 5. Perhaps you might want to consider. What they mean, you must do this immediately. It is not optional. This is British instruction delivered as a gentle suggestion. Perhaps you might want to consider reviewing the budget before Thursday means you must review the budget before Thursday. There is no perhaps about it. The perhaps and the might are not making it optional. They are making it polite. The action is mandatory. Only the delivery is soft.
So, when a British person says, perhaps you might want to, I should treat it as a direct instruction rather than a casual suggestion?
Always, especially from someone senior to you. Phrase 6. I hear what you are saying. What they mean, I completely disagree with you. I hear what you are saying is the British way of signaling, I have processed your point, and I am about to tell you why it is wrong. Do not be fooled by the apparent open-mindedness of, I hear you. What follows will be a dismantling of your argument. Prepare a counter-response. Phrase 7. Not bad. What they mean? Actually quite good, or even excellent. Not bad is positive in British English, especially in the north of England. In Manchester, Leeds, or Sheffield, not bad is a genuine compliment. Someone saying not bad about your work in Manchester is telling you they are impressed. Do not be deflated by it. It is a thumbs up. So, not bad in Manchester means well done? But not bad in an international setting might sound neutral or even slightly negative to non-British ears. Exactly the trap. Context matters enormously. Phrase 8. Fairly. As in, that was fairly good. Or, I am fairly happy with this. Fairly works like quite. It weakens rather than strengthens. Fairly good means acceptable, but not impressive. A fairly decent result means we expected better. Never interpret fairly as very in British English. It is always a small flag. Phrase 9. You must come for dinner sometime. What they mean? This is a social nicety, and we will probably never have dinner. I am saying this to close the conversation warmly, not to issue a genuine invitation. If a British acquaintance says, you must come for dinner sometime, do not go home and check your calendar. They are being friendly, not specific. A genuine invitation in Britain sounds like, are you free next Saturday? Would you like to come for dinner on the 15th? A specific date, a real question. Sometime means nothing scheduled.
I have spent years hoping for follow-up invitations that never came. Now I understand why.
Phrase 10. I do not want to cause a fuss, but what they mean? I am about to cause a fuss, and it is completely justified. This phrase introduces a serious complaint or concern. Always. If a British person in a restaurant in Edinburgh says, I do not want to cause a fuss, but the food is cold and they are unhappy. If a colleague in Bristol says, I do not want to cause a fuss, but there is a significant problem that needs addressing. The not wanting to cause a fuss is the ritual disclaimer. The fuss is coming. Now, something fascinating. British understatement is not the same across all of Britain. The level of indirectness, the specific phrases, and the communication style vary quite significantly depending on where you are. Let us go city by city, because this genuinely matters if you are working or living in different parts of the UK. I had no idea there were regional differences. I thought British understatement was universal across the whole country. London first. London is the spiritual home of British understatement, especially in professional settings. The most elaborate, most indirect communication in the UK happens in London boardrooms and professional environments. Quite interesting. With the greatest respect, I am not entirely convinced. These phrases are at their most polished and most misleading in London. If you are working in London finance, law, media, or government, you are in the most indirect communication environment in Britain. Everything requires reading between the lines. What about Manchester? Because I have worked with people from Manchester and they felt quite different from Londoners. Manchester, and the north of England generally, is significantly more direct than London. Mancunians are known for saying what they think.
Not bad genuinely means good. If a Mancunian disagrees with you, they will often just tell you. The understatement is still there, but it is a much thinner layer. You are less likely to be catastrophically misled by a conversation in Manchester than in London. The warmth is also more visible and less coded.
What about Scotland? Edinburgh and Glasgow.
Scotland is interesting. Edinburgh, particularly in professional settings, uses British understatement, but with a Scottish flavor. Scots are generally warmer and more direct than the English in social settings, but professional Edinburgh can be quite formal and indirect. Glasgow is different again. Glaswegians are famously direct, warm, and quick-witted. A Glaswegian will tell you what they think, but they will do it with such warmth and humor that it never feels harsh. Glasgow is one of the most directly communicative cities in the UK.
And Wales. What about Cardiff?
Welsh communication tends to be warm and community-oriented. Cardiff is generally more direct and open than London, with a warmth that is more similar to Irish communication than Southern English. The Welsh are known for genuine warmth and hospitality, and their communication style reflects that. Less coded than London, more emotionally open. And Bristol, which sits between the north-south divide in England, tends to be warm, creative, and slightly more direct than London. Bristol's creative industries attract people who communicate more openly than traditional City of London types.
So, if you were trying to understand British communication, you really do need to know where in Britain you are. It makes a real difference.
It makes an enormous difference. London meetings and Glasgow meetings can feel like completely different communication cultures, even though both are in the same country. Knowing this helps you calibrate your expectations and your responses. Now, the practical question. What do you actually do when a British person gives you coded communication? Because knowing the code is one thing. Responding correctly is another. Let us talk about how to navigate these moments in real time.
This is what I always struggle with. I either take it literally and get it wrong, or I assume everything negative is understatement and get paranoid. Is there a middle path?
There is. Strategy 1. Ask clarifying questions. When you receive a phrase that might be coded, ask a gentle, open question. That is quite interesting. Can I ask what aspects you would like to develop further? Or, you mentioned that might be a challenge. Could you tell me more about your concerns? British people are relieved when someone asks a clarifying question because it gives them an opening to say what they actually mean without them having to volunteer it. You are doing them a favor.
So, clarifying questions unlock the real message?
They almost always do. Strategy 2. Watch the face and energy alongside the words. British communication is polite verbally, but body language and energy often tell the truth. If someone says, "That is quite interesting," while avoiding eye contact and moving on quickly, the phrase is negative. If they say it and then lean forward and start asking questions, it might be genuinely positive. The words alone are not enough information. The full picture includes tone, pace, eye contact, and what happens immediately after the phrase.
Strategy 3?
Strategy 3. Build relationships over time. British understatement is much easier to decode with people you know well. With a close British colleague, after a few months, you start to learn their personal version of the code. You learn that when they say, "not entirely sure," it means they hate it. Or that when they say, "could be interesting," they are actually engaged. The code becomes personalized. And with close friends, British people are often quite direct. The indirectness is highest with strangers and professional acquaintances. With real friends, you hear the truth.
That is actually reassuring. It is not that British people never say what they mean. They just need trust first.
Exactly. And once that trust is there, conversations with British people become wonderfully rich and warm and funny because British humor self-deprecating, dry, understated, is one of the most delightful forms of human communication. Once you are in on the joke, you do not want to leave. Let us do a quick comparison, because many of our listeners work with both British and American colleagues, and the contrast can be genuinely disorienting, because they are both English, but the communication styles are almost opposite in some ways. Tell me the biggest differences. When an American in New York thinks your idea is bad, they say, "I do not think this is the right approach, and here is why." Direct, clear, sometimes with warmth, but unmistakable. When a British person in London thinks your idea is bad, they say, "That is quite interesting. I wonder if there might be some other considerations worth exploring." You need the decoder to know they think it is bad. Same judgment, completely different delivery.
And when an American thinks your idea is brilliant?
An American in Los Angeles might say, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I absolutely love this. This is exactly what we needed. You are so talented." Enthusiastic, emotional, warm. A British person who thinks your idea is brilliant might say, "Yes, this is not bad at all. I think there could be something in this." And you might not realize they are thrilled, because "not bad at all" in British English, with the right tone, can mean "this is excellent work."
So, Americans overshoot in their praise and British people undershoot? And somehow both are sincere?
Both are completely sincere, different cultural expressions of the same genuine feeling. And when you work with both, you learn to recalibrate constantly. American praise at face value. British praise amplified significantly. American criticism is what it says. British criticism, multiply the severity. Once you internalize that recalibration, you can read both cultures accurately.
Write in the comments. Have you worked with both British and American colleagues? Tell us which communication style you find easier to navigate. And has anything in today's episode changed how you will read future British conversations? We want to know.
What an episode! British understatement is genuinely one of the most fascinating aspects of the English language, and one of the most practically important for anyone using English in international or professional settings. It is a system, a code, and now you have the decoder.
Let us bring together the key things from today. 1. British indirectness comes from 3 deep cultural roots: preserving dignity, understatement as sophistication, and historical class communication. 2. The key phrases and their real meanings. "That is quite interesting" means "I am not convinced." "With the greatest respect" means "I think you are wrong." "That is very brave" means "that was a risky choice." "I am sure it will be fine" means "I am worried." "Perhaps you might want to consider" means "you must do this." "I hear what you are saying" means "I disagree." "Not bad" means good. "You must come for dinner" means no specific plans. "I do not want to cause a fuss" but means a concern is coming. 3. Understatement varies by city. London is the most indirect. Manchester, Glasgow, and Cardiff are more direct and warm. 4. To navigate it, ask clarifying questions, watch body language alongside words, and build relationships over time.
Your challenge this week. The next time a British person says something to you that feels ambiguous, do not take it at face value immediately. Pause. Think about what we covered today, and try asking one gentle clarifying question. You might be surprised by what you discover. And write in the comments and tell us what happened.
And if you are British yourself and watching this, hello, we see you. Tell us in the comments. Is our decoder accurate? What did we get right and what did we miss? We would love your perspective.
If this episode helped you, please share it with someone who works with British colleagues or plans to visit the UK. You could save them months of confusion. Subscribe to Simple English Talks, new episodes every week, and we will see you next time.
This is Simple English Talks with Emma. See you next time.